What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we're gonna see if all the internet experts are right and compare the Peavey 6505 1992 original against the Peavey 5150 block letter, the Peavey 5150 signature, and the Peavey 6505. Let's do it. Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name's Kyle. What I do is I take all sorts of awesome, high gain related guitar equipment, I record it with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. I don't know why I have this look on my face. So if you're into E-standard thrash riffs, dropsy hardcore riffs, and dudes that get weird looks on their faces for no reason, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on the way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright guys, so this is an extremely heavily requested video from not only the viewers of this channel, but just Peavey 5150 6505 fans in general, because if you go into any high gain amplifier group or any Peavey related amplifier group, you're not gonna have to scroll very far before you get to a comment or a subject thread where people are discussing the differences between the block letter 5150, the 6505, the signature, and now add to the mix the new 6505 1992 original. It's like one of those ongoing debates. People can never seem to agree on whether they are the same or whether they are different, even though the differences have all been basically laid out in plain English by James Brown himself. And then when it comes to the 1992 original, all the differences were told to me by John Fields over at Peavey, who sent me this amplifier in order to make videos like this for you guys. John told me everything that went into this amplifier. John is not part of Peavey's marketing department, and I've known the guy, you know, well before I started this channel, and he has always shot very straight with me, and he's also been really cool in giving me all the behind the scenes details of the 5150 development, the 6505 1992 original development, and a whole host of other PP amplifiers. I'm having a rough one that I have in my collection and that are out there in the world, and James Brown has also done the same. So I have to thank both of those fine gentlemen for giving me all the information that they've given me over the past couple of years regarding these amps, and for both honestly being extremely straight shooters. I don't think anybody who has ever talked to either of them would try to tell you otherwise. So with that being said, I have been inundated with questions and requests of people wanting me to tell them or show them the differences of the new 6505 1992 original versus the block letter, the signature, and the Peavey 6505. So now I finally have all four of them in my possession at the same time. This is not a scientific test, guys. If this was a scientific test, I would be swapping the tubes between the 6505 1992 original and all three of these amplifiers, and I'm just not gonna do that. What I have done though is I have put brand new JJ power tubes in all three of these amplifiers here. This amp has less than 5 hours on it total, and it has JJ 6L6 power amp tubes in it. They also have JJ across the board in the preamp. So for all intents and purposes, like, these amps are as close as you're gonna get them in the real world without swapping the exact tubes from one amp to the next. With the way that I do my demos and the way that you guys have requested for me to show them to you, that just wouldn't work. So I did the next best thing. We are all going into we being the amps, I am also an amp. Everything is going into the KHE 4x4 amp switcher, and it is all going into my Mesa oversized rectifier 4x12 cabinet with vintage 30s in it. I've got an SM57 on that vintage 30, so every single amp is going to be going, you're gonna be hearing it through the exact same speaker with the exact same mic position. We're gonna be switching in real time. So that is how this is going to work. I have my Heritage H150 artisan aged with the Seymour Duncan Antiquities in them. We will turn on a TS9 towards the end of the test just to see if each one reacts differently to boosts or not. But guys, for all intents and purposes, all four of these amps are the same. People love to debate ad nauseum and get extremely tribal and get, you know, super aggressive towards people who disagree with their personal opinions. You know, the block letter is the holy grail, it's the absolute best, and Peavey changed it after they went from the block letter to the signature and it was never the same again. Guys, that's all bullshit. The only one of these amps that has actual differences in the components is the 6505 1992 original. It has the transformers from the Peavey Invective, which were based on what Peavey felt was a really solid example of an original block letter transformer that they had in-house. John then tweaked it a little bit for Misha in order to get a little bit more upper mid clarity, and that is it. Over the years, the 6505 did experience a different transformer manufacturer I don't know exactly when that happened, but the transformer manufacturer that made them for the original 5150s closed shop. So Peavey had to source the 6505 transformers from a new manufacturer, but they were made to the exact same specs. Nothing about them was changed whatsoever. So for all intents and purposes, these three amps should be identical. They should be the same across the board. But yeah, I think that you guys are gonna see with this video, the differences between these four amplifiers are no greater than if we got four other of these same amps and replaced them in this shootout. The differences between those four would be just as same as the differences between these four. Not just the same, but they would be minute. The differences are gonna be minute. They're gonna be down to tolerance spec. They're gonna be down to component age or drift. Over the years, electronic components tend to drift in spec, causing the amp to sound slightly different. So when someone tells you one of their 5150s was the magic one, or one of their 6505s was the magic one, it really just comes down to the component tolerances and how far those components have drifted in or out of spec over the years. So, all right, that's enough talking. I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna play a couple chords on each amplifier, let them ring a little bit so you guys can hear them, and then we will come back and discuss. Okay guys, so during that little test, I did notice subtle differences between each one of these amplifiers. So we'll start by saying that all of these amps have the exact same settings. The pre-gain is set exactly the same, just above 3 on the dial. All of the EQ controls are at noon, and then we have the resonance at 6 and the presence just below 9 o'clock. It's literally as close as I could humanly get it across all four amplifiers, so they are dialed in exactly the same for all intents and purposes. So with that being said, the differences that I noticed, the 6505 seems to be a little bit brighter, a little bit tighter, just a tad bit off the top of my head. The EVH 5150 had a little bit more low mid grunt, and it seemed like it had just a tad more gain. And again, that's going to come down to tolerance differences between the 12AX7s and the preamp. The 5150 signature here sounded the thinnest out of all three of them, and it sounded like it had the least amount of gain, and that could just be, again, down to one of the preamp tubes being slightly weaker. And then the 6505, I felt like it seemed the least present, and it was like the clankiest on the low end at the same time. So it was both not as bright, but like more present in the low end, if that makes any sense. So with that being said, I'm gonna bump all of the controls up to 7, just to see how they react to having the controls bumped up to 7, and I'm gonna bump up the gain to just above 4. Here's another riff. We're gonna go through all 4 of them, same riff. All right, guys, so honestly, going between all 4 of these, okay, guys, so switching between all 4 of those with the exact same settings, the change settings that I mentioned, it seemed like the 6505 was the most noticeably different. Like, it got, the high end seemed to get quite a bit brighter, and the mids came quite a bit more forward. It seemed kind of the cleanest out of all of them. Like, it still had gain, but I could hear the notes a little bit more clearly. The 5150, the mids just seem a little bit more forward, a little bit more prevalent, so it made it seem kind of louder here in the room, and it also had a decent low end push. And then, you know, the 5150 signature was the thinnest. Again, I think one of the preamp tubes in here may be measuring a little bit lower than the others, and that's probably the difference that we're hearing. And over to the 1992 original, I felt like it was kind of like in the middle of all these. Like, it was just, it was pretty even across the board. There was nothing that really stood out to me frequency-wise. So the last riff, we'll do a blind test. I won't show which amp is which, and I'm gonna play the riff on all 4, and I'm gonna make you guys guess. But real quick, before we do that, we're turning on the TS9, and we're gonna go through these and play a quick riff on all 4 of them to see how it reacts to a tube screamer. All right, guys, so pretty much all the same differences apply. I think the most noticeably different one out of all the amps is the block letter. The mids just seem a little bit more forward, and it seems a tiny bit more punchy on the low end. But again, like in a mix, highly doubt you're gonna notice any of these differences. 1992 original seems the most balanced across the board. 5150 SIG seems the thinnest. So, with that being said, I'm not gonna touch anything. I'm gonna play a riff, and I'm gonna make sure that you can't see which amp that I'm on. And we're gonna play the same riff across all 4, and I'm gonna have you guys guess down in the comments which one you think is which. And I'll put a marker on the screen that just says, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 to let you know which segment that we're on switching between amps, but those are not gonna correspond between the numbers on the KHE. So you guys have to guess which amp is which. Again, down in the comments. So here we go. We're gonna start, and I'm gonna select a random amp out of this group. Make sure to let me know down below. I will link them down below where I compared the Signature and the block letter, where I compared the 6505 and the Signature. And even though in the video they sounded super, super close to identical, people would, point out these big elaborate differences that they could hear through their super high quality studio grade monitors and stuff. And which, by the way, you should be listening to this comparison on monitors if you want to get the most effect from this, the most accurate representation of what's going on here. But even so, they're just talking out of their ass, and that's most of the amp community, if we're being 100% honest with each other. There's just so much crap, there's so much lore, there's so much mystique around certain amplifiers at certain years and everything else, and people just take those differences and they blow them out of proportion, and then it becomes this whole thing. And overall, does it really matter that much? No. It really doesn't matter, at all. But what's your take? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to help me out and continue to fund more videos like this, check out my Sweetwater and my Zounds affiliate links if you guys are shopping for any new gear. If you guys click those links, anything you purchase, I get a little bit of an affiliate commission on, and it really helps me afford to do shootouts like this on this channel, because this was funded by my own money. This was not sponsored. So if you do click those links, I very much appreciate it. If this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more content like this. Hit that like button, because I know you like this video. Come on, be honest with yourself. And that's gonna do it for me today, guys. Kyle here again. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. First comment on this video is going to be about how the block letter sounds so much better than all four of the other ones. Bet. You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.